We know that when we work with groups and we work with permissions for groups of users or individual users for that matter, that we have the ability to set unique permissions for each of those users or the entire group. We also have the ability to simply inherit the same permissions that exist in the parent site. So for example, when I created the documentation subsite, which is a document workspace, I opted to set unique permissions for the group of people who will have access to this site. Another option would have been to simply inherit the same permissions that exist in the parent site here, the training site. I didn't want to do that at the time, but as you know, things can change. So if site content changes, for example, and you need to change those permissions, you can always go back and do that. The easiest way to do it is to simply go to the Site Actions dropdown, choose Site Settings, and then from the Site Settings page, what we're going to do under Users and Permissions is select Advanced Permissions. So here's where we see a list of all of the groups. You can see them all here. You can see the type of group. And then you can also see the permissions. And there's our unique permissions that we set up for this group called contributors. We wanted to give them a contribute type permission, which allowed them to go in there and view information or data. They could actually edit some of that data, but they did not have full control over the site. So maybe we want to change that. We want to give them more permissions, or maybe we simply want to inherit the permissions of the parent site, which in this case is our training site. So the first thing I need to do is select the checkbox next to that particular group. I can do this change for multiple groups if I wanted to by simply selecting many or all or just one of the groups like I have right here. Next, I'll go up to Actions and check out the three options I have here. I can remove user permissions altogether, so anyone in this group will have no permissions. I can edit those user permissions or simply inherit the permissions of the parent site. So I'm going to choose Edit User Permissions. So you can actually see what we selected, which was Contribute. And you can see that allows users to view, add, update, and delete content. But they can't go in and delete, approve, or customize. And of course, they don't have full control. So if I want to change it, I could simply make my choice and click OK. There, I've updated their permissions. But what if I want them to simply inherit the same permissions that exist in the parent site, the training site? That's easy too. Click in the checkbox, go up to Actions, and just simply select Inherit Permissions. It knows when I click OK to actually assign the same permissions that exist in the parent site, the training site. So now I can go back to that site, the documentation workspace, knowing that my contributors group now has a different kind of access. They've got the same access or permissions as my parent site training. And I can do that when I'm setting up the group. Of course, I can always go back at any time and change it back if I need to. Same thing, Site Actions, Site Settings. We go over to Advanced Permissions. And now you can see that I don't actually have a checkbox here because I've inherited permissions. But if I go up to Actions here and I want to manage permissions of the parent, that's one option, or edit permissions, I can do that too. Clicking Edit Permissions, I click OK. And now I've got my checkboxes back. Click next to Contributors, and I'll go up to Edit User Permissions, and it's set back to Contribute. If I wanted it at Design and Contribute, I can choose both. I'm going to leave it at just Design and choose OK. There we go. So we go back to documentation to return to the site. So keep in mind that while you can assign unique permissions or simply inherit permissions from the parent site, you can always go back at a later time and change those.